guys, sorry for it looked like a 2 or 3 second delay. It was telling me, oh, are you ready to go live? And it had already gone live, so that was confusing. But welcome. Notice this is not actually a Xenia Bridge. This is me chilling with a couple of my my close friends from the community, all of which I've either had some sort of hand in them coming out or have come out recently. And struggled a little bit with the anti-theist side of the community. Unfortunately, Raz was not feeling very well. Has been struggling with illness all day, really wanted to make it, but did not get a chance to come. I'm really, really sad about that. But they did give me permission to kind of talk a little bit about what they and I have been talking about for the last few months, which is that Raz felt a call to Ares in particular, and has been exploring polytheism as what we would call a seeker on my Discord, which basically just means that you don't really have a tradition or a path yet, but you're exploring polytheism, and you're exploring in particular sometimes 1 or 2 traditions. It can be anywhere from years and years of polytheistic experience, but you're just now starting to explore one particular path, to you're brand freaking new to it and you had a dream or something and you feel like the gods have called you, and now you're trying to figure out what that means. So Raz is very much in the seeker position and has been nervous about coming out to the polytheistic community and to the community at large because of their association with larger channels within the community that, although we're very open, let's face it, like all of us have gotten shit. And even polytheists have gotten shit in the side chat for some of those larger channels that Raz is associated with. So this was actually supposed to be sort of a pseudo coming out about that, and unfortunately it didn't happen, so I got permission to tell as much of the story as that, and I'm sure Raz will open up about it again sometime soon. So yeah, Raz is not feeling too well. I'm sorry about that. They are sorry about that as well. I told them not to be because, how the heck are you supposed to control being sick? But that's where we're at. That said, welcome to the guests who are here. You guys are all longtime friends of the channel. PL and Chrissy in particular, I met in the same stream from, the channel that I used to work on. Both of you guys are freaking awesome. Thank you guys so much for coming. And both of you have come out as polytheists relatively recently. So Chrissy, since you are to my right on the screen, I'll let you introduce yourself first.
Hi, all. I'm Chrissy H. That's how I go on Twitter anyways. You'll also notice anywhere else, I usually go by Chris. There are reasons. Don't ask. I'm Chris in the comments as well. Chris H. I am a gender fluid anarcho-communist on Twitter. I'm
just so you guys know,
better known as an asshole.
The stream is filled with lefties, and I've told Chrissy to be nice tonight, unless you're a dick first, in which case I ain't going to stop you.
I've agreed to be nice, so it's down for about 2 hours.
Well, and you used to be known. I'm going
to hold your asses to the fire.
You used to be known in the community under Biblical History Skeptics, didn't you? Like, that channel's gone now, but
no, the channel's still around. Actually, it's still being run by my old co-host Brian. But yeah, I used to be Biblical History Skeptics. You would find my name attached in credits on numerous different channels. So I'm credited on Sources, on Apologias, and others because I am rather well known as doing a bunch of Bible stuff. I do a lot of Bible research and stuff like that, but I am actually a Canaanite polytheist when it comes to my religious beliefs. So that is always fun to explain to Christians. Is I study the Bible professionally, and I'm believing in all the gods that everyone hates in it.
And we'll get into that in a little bit, but I wanted to kind of bring the round table over to Witch, who used to be a part of What the Craft and maybe starting that channel up again. Welcome, Witch, also a longtime friend of the channel. You and I met through Ocean's Discord originally, if I recall correctly, but you've been on a few of the streams from, like the old channel that I used to work on as well.
Yeah, I hopped around. Like, I popped up about a year ago and hopped around a little bit, and then was like, I don't know about this YouTube thing. And, well, I got smacked by the clue by 4 today, so apparently the channel will be coming back. I don't know when, and I don't know how frequently, but it's a thing in the works.
Well, and the whole conceit of your channel for a long time was you're a, staunch polytheist married to an atheist.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
like family dynamics and stuff with that, because that sounds like a whole barrel of fun, and I'm sure we'll get into that.
Oh, our drunk debates are the best. It's like a favorite pastime. Just get drunk and debate each other. It can be fun.
And we have probably the most well-known of our guests, Mr. Progressive Liberal Ethan. You just hit monetizations pretty recently, didn't you? Like, congratulations on that.
Thank you. Yeah, it's like a month ago. It's been pretty cool. Been pretty awesome.
And you came out recently on your channel as well as worshiping a couple of the Religio Roma gods, particularly.
Yes, that's true. Venus and Luna are my two muses, I suppose you could say.
Patron goddesses, I think, because the muses are their own thing.
I know. I was teasing you. Yeah, patrons.
Of course you were. You teased me on stream too, and like
I do.
You got a face full of the Greek gods are not the Roman gods. Angry keyboard tapping.
Yeah. I
That was.
But yeah,
fun.
thanks for having me. It's awesome to be here, and I've known Chris and I have butted heads before. Chrissy now, and Witch and I have known each other for a long time too. So it's cool here to be here with you guys.
So one of the big things, and I've got a few stories that I'm going to be reading off tonight. On Fire is actually in the chat. On Fire put up a coming out story fairly recently on Twitter in response to Ocean Keltoi's video, which is in the description, by the way, for any of you guys who haven't seen it. It's about coming out of the broom closet, which hence the title of the video. It's a colloquial term that came out of Wicca and witchcraft because of the connotations regarding that. But the thing is you would think coming out of the broom closet in an atheist space would be safer than coming out of the broom closet in like a Christian space. But what's interesting is that doesn't necessarily seem to be the case for a lot of us. I personally have gotten backlash, not for coming out, but just being openly polytheist, both working on my prior channel and also even here. Like, I've gotten crap in my comments section that has either been removed or gotten hit by the spam filter, and I just didn't send it through. I've gotten DMs. I got angry, like pictures of people's members telling me exactly what I could do with them. And like why they were mad at me. I've gotten a lot of crap just for being openly who I am. And I didn't even start as a atheist content creator. I started just working with an atheist and I got crap. Jen Aldrich, my co-host, has also gotten crap for working with me. Like, she was called a traitor by people in the community that she used to be a part of. She's been attacked on Twitter. She's been attacked in private and behind her back, just for being willing to work with me. And like, Cirrus has gotten some of that crap too for working with Ocean. So I'm going to pull up the On Fire thing really quick, but Chrissy, you were pretty prominently a part of the anti-theist space for quite a while. Do you want to talk a little bit about your coming out? Because it looked like things were going positively at first, but from what you've told me since, there's been a lot of the backlash that you were worried about.
Yeah, so I got into the community and I was like super atheist, as in the I'm going to make sure you know that God does not exist kind of atheist. And that's how I got into like starting like the Biblical History Skeptics channel with Brian. We came out of Facebook debate groups, so always a healthy way to start a channel. Because Facebook's notorious for that. And so we started that up, with reading the Bible and stuff like that. And very quickly, so about 2 weeks after we started the channel, I was invited into a stream with Steve McRae, who shall now be known as who shall not be named.
Why did you have to even say his name?
There are multiple he who shall not be named, the channel that shall not be named. There are a lot of names that are just not to be uttered in this space.
But anyways,
By the way, for the record, for anybody who wants to know my position on that, my position is fuck anybody who asks me for a position. Like, I'm friends with the people that I'm friends with. That shit predates me being in the community. I've issued public opinions, about things that I've seen done since I've been in the community, but the whole drama there, that not my business, not my circus, not my animals. Like, that's my position on that.
Yeah. So like I got invited into a stream with him, and Ocean was there. I had never met a polytheist before that, and I was so intrigued. It was a double whammy for me because I was in a stream with Ocean and also a stream with Mr. Intelligent Design, who is also notorious on that side of the community. But then I ended up getting very deeply involved in the atheist community, specifically on Steve's side of it, for quite a while. And about like halfway through my atheist career on YouTube, for those wondering, I've pretty much quit YouTube now. But basically, since then, about halfway through, I started really becoming curious about polytheism in general. And so the first person I reached out to ask about it was actually Ocean. And I asked him for some books to read on it. And so he suggested that I start by reading Stephen Dillon's The Case for Polytheism, which is a great little book. Highly suggest it.
He's working on a pseudo-Neoplatonic sequel, by the way.
Oh, interesting. I'm not sure how I feel about the Neoplatonic aspect of it, but that's just me being not.
That's neither here nor there. That's neither here nor there. Nobody in this room is Platonist.
Yeah. So anyway, but then I read that, and then I decided I was going to actually start really in-depth exploring Canaanite religion from the standpoint that I have always just been extremely interested in it and had a very strong connection with it. Just even from an academic standpoint, it was just something I've always liked and wanted to study, and I've never gotten tired of it. So I decided to look into it more from an actual religious standpoint, though, and started feeling like I had like an actual spiritual connection there. And like the first person that I started actually talking about that connection with was then Allie.
And we had many discussions about this. Like, you were scared to death that you were, experiencing a mental problem or something else. And you were also scared that if it was real, that you would lose a lot of standing in the community if you were vocal about it.
Yeah.
Do you remember the advice that I gave you, by the way?
Honestly, my short-term memory is terrible. So I can only remember things like in like large placement right now, like large scope. I can't remember.
Like the advice that I gave you was very similar to the advice that I gave PL, which is you can stay in the brew closet for as long as you want to. Nobody's entitled to your beliefs, but it's up to you if you feel that it means something to you to be open. Yeah.
Like the first time I remember coming out and talking to you about it was actually right after our stream with PL here, because we were. It was right after that because we met on that stream. And I think we were talking about Antifa on that one.
Yeah, and then we got into a massive debate that lasted for like an hour and a half in the after show about
and I won. Let's just.
What? You won by conceding that you were basically just like a dem sock, which makes you effectively a commie. Yeah, like that's why your nickname is actually a commie on my server.
Listen. I got nothing. Nope, you're right. Yeah.
You heard it here, folks. But progressive liberal is actually a commie and has nothing to say to me in response to that. But no, like you ended up waiting for like over an hour and a half of like PL and I like fighting back and forth about communism and coming to the conclusion that PL was indeed a communist, just not pro-revolution.
Yeah. That was a very entertaining thing to just listen to, just listening to that debate. But yeah, right after that, Allie and I started talking. We had a voice chat after, and we went until what was it, 4 a.m. or something like that. Just chatting nonstop. I think we started by talking about polytheism, and
I made a joke about how often you must have heard about the Apocrypha as somebody who studied the Bible, and you were just like, we are now instantly friends.
Yeah, yeah, and then but we talked about we started talking about polytheism because I specifically was asking about what you were doing with Hellenism, and I started talking about
no truer statement has ever been said, by the way, Gainer.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that is so true. But started talking about Hellenism and how you were reconstructing it, and then I kind of shared that I was having extreme connections to polytheism.
Canaanite polytheism.
I don't think I'd specifically said which.
You mentioned that it was an ancient Semitic faith. Like that's what you said that night. And then later you came out that it was Canaanite recon, and I was like, well, you've got your word cut out ahead for you, don't you? But it was several months before you opened up outside of small sections of Ocean's Discord and only very particular people. Because at the time, I didn't actually have my own space yet. I was still working for another space, and that's how we met. We would talk a lot in DMs, but it took you several months before, when you were on a stream, you decided to come out of your own volition because you felt like you were tired of being in the closet.
Yeah. I think the first time I came out to you first, and then I came out to Ocean after that. And then I think the first time that I quasi-publicly acknowledged it was then when we had the group experience of Hermes fucking with mics.
Yes, the great SPG incident, as it is called in the server lore. If you ever want to hear about that, my Discord link is in the description. We hang out on the Discord at night, and occasionally our friend Ray comes in, who is there for the entirety of that whole thing. Chrissy was as well. We talk about it periodically as the great SPG incident, and it was absolutely glorious. But, what's interesting is at first, there was a lot of acceptance from the pagan community. We were like, hey, welcome, you're a part of us, even though you're one of exactly 2 that exist in our community that reconstruct Canaanite polytheism. You are very, 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 the rarest of the rare.
Yeah, the pagan community was super accepting. The whole time I was exceptionally nervous about coming out in the atheist community. By the time I did come out, I had already quit my channel. I had mostly dropped off most of the atheist scene. The only place I was still really around was on Twitter. And then I had a few people friended on Facebook that I kept up with, mostly because I would help them with Bible stuff and that sort of thing. But on Twitter, on my original Twitter account, I was bordering 800 followers or something like that, and was my name was known pretty decently throughout the community. I'd been on Arn Raw's channel before, and other places, so it wasn't hard to figure out who I was.
Yeah,
so and also being associated with Arn's side, which is so notoriously just vitriolic against theism of all kinds, was an instantaneous, I'm not really sure I want to come out at all.
Yeah, and you've had some pretty hefty criticism of Aaron in the past, which, like, my impression of him is that he seems to be a decent enough person. He just has some very targeted opinions that don't have a lot of grounding within historical education. Like, that's just my viewpoint. Like, he seems like somebody who needs to be educated more on history and the way that certain things work, who's brilliant when it comes to things like biology. Like, his evolutionary argument, he's great on taking on Christians, but he doesn't seem to know what to do with us. That's my viewpoint on him.
Yeah, like he's good at young Earth creationism, and that's kind of like where it is.
Yeah, like Ocean and I have both heard talk of a number of we're talking about Aaron Rothray. Ocean and I have both heard of a number of secret polytheists within the atheist community. It's actually is surprising how many of us there are, which, you know, like brings us to PL. You know, we can talk about the backlash you got in a minute, Chrissy, but I wanted to let PL speak up. Like, you were absolutely fucking terrified. So after the Cirrus and Ocean stream, like, you had ended up having a conversation with a few different people, from what you said on your stream that you put out, about like wanting to come out as, you know, somebody who worships the Religio Romana deities, specifically Luna and Venus.
Yeah, I mean, I can't think of any that was... I mean, I didn't get any comments like, I'm leaving your channel now, or anything like that.
Well, no, I was talking more about you talking about your coming out story. I was saying we could talk about the backlash Chrissy's gotten, because Chrissy's gotten a crap ton of it.
Right, yeah, I didn't get any of that. Which is, I mean, I'm sure if I was in different spaces, I would, right? Like, if I was, you know, if I was more in like anti-theist spaces, probably that would have come. But as far as
you got a lot more curiosity in your side chat that night, I saw. Like, there were some atheists that were like, you know, well, what does your religion say about this? They were very curious because most people had never been exposed to a Taoist, let alone a Taoist syncretic. Sure.
And I think someone was talking about in the chat before we went live that paganism doesn't really have like a moral code. And I think here's what I want to say about that. It was that stream that you did with Ocean right before I came out that convinced me to be public about this, because Ocean said in that stream, you know, I think that a lot of us that are leftists, that are progressive minded, are fueled by the gods that we align ourselves with. And I mean, I like knew that, but I never had really like internalized that, how much Venus's representations fuel my own desires, my own, not, you know, like normal human desires, but my desires of what the kind of world that I want to see. Right. You know, I believe in progressive taxation. I believe in social liberalism. Therefore, progressive liberal. I like, you know, but it's because I'm so aligned with everything Venus represents that we get there. And for me, it was an extension of, not even an extension, but an explanation of why I am the way that I am. So my moral center, I think, comes from that, paired with the walking the Tao and searching for the way towards enlightenment. I can't find it. It doesn't, it's not a path that you can find, and enlightenment's not a state that you can attain, but it's about the journey of searching for it. And, you know, me being a Taoist has been open for a long time, but I thought that it was important that I talk about this other piece of it, because it's really the two pieces together that form the moral center that I strive for, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and that does make a lot of sense. Like, for example, I've talked extensively about how Stoicism, to me, is an intrinsic part of my faith. You know, it can be used separately. There's a lot of people that try to. There's a lot of people who try to turn it into a Christian thing, which boggles my mind. But, like, Stoicism as a philosophy informs the ever-loving crap out of my work. Like, you know, it's Stoicism as understood when you read the Stoics, not Stoicism as understood when you read a bunch of blogs about the Stoics, because there's a lot of people that I've met that have not studied deep enough into it to fully understand things. But like my faith very much is an intrinsic part of the work that I do. My faith, Xania, like my show Xania Bridge is literally named after a Hellenistic concept of friendship and bridge building, right? Like that is intrinsically baked into my faith itself, as is the idea of, not using names of your gods to refer to other gods. Like when I talk to a Kemetic, I use the names of their deities. I don't try to tell them that my deities are theirs. Same with like when you and I talk, I honor you as somebody who follows the Roman gods. I don't say that, even though there's people who try to make that argument, oh, they're the Greek gods who actually follow these ones. No, I don't tell you to rename your gods. These are the aspects that you identify with. Like those are the gods that you worship. And like that's something that is unique in polytheism, I think, because most monotheistic faiths do not accept other gods, with the exception of course, the Episcopalians. A number of them do. And one of my good friends, Science Side Up, actually does, if I recall correctly. But like she talks about how she's basically a heretic in any other church. So, which brings us, I guess, to Witch. You have been out in the polytheistic community for a long time, but you're still closeted in your actual home area.
Yeah, I'm out online. In real life, I don't hide that I'm a polytheist. If somebody asks, I'll tell them. But I'm not going to tell anybody that I'm a witch. Ever. I don't think. In real life. Because for whatever reason, the reaction to the term witch or to the pentagram or the pentacle is so visceral. But you say pagan or you say polytheist, oh, you're just misguided. But you say witch and all of a sudden you want to kidnap somebody's kids.
I mean, sometimes you get both. Like sometimes saying pagan or polytheist will get you the same reaction. Ocean talked a little bit about that on his video. And we've got some stories like that I'm going to be bringing up in a few that go along those lines.
Yeah, it can. I'm not as far south as like Ocean and Wolf are. If I was that far south, then yeah, I would get it for pagan or polytheist. I'm a bit further north than I'm not in the north, but I'm a bit further north than they are. So, yeah.
Well, and this is where we start to get into some of the backlash stuff, because I've got this thing from On Fire about an experience that they had at work, and experiences that they had with their parents when they first came out. So this is a little bit lengthy. It's a series of Twitter posts. You can go find them. It's AUN_fire for Twitter, if you guys want to go read them yourself. But I'm going to read the excerpts that I was told that I could share. So they said, so when I first started practicing in high school, my dad took one of my pentagrams because I was a teen, and he did my laundry one day and found it in the pocket of one of my jeans. My friend spent money on that from her fast food job, so it was extremely rude. My second was after I graduated high school. I worked in a retail and an amusement park. During the last few weekends before Samhain, I had worn my new pentagram with me, or I worn my new pentagram for me. One night, while I was closing, two women, whom I assume were sisters or friends, came in with 2 or 3 children. Even though it was late, I took time with these kids, squatting down to their level and helping them choose a toy and souvenir to buy with their own money. As it was late, my pentagram had fallen out of my shirt. It was large, or it wasn't large or anything. It was small, discreet, and thin. Anyway, when we were done shopping, one of the women took the children outside and the other took the items to check out. When we were done, I smiled and handed her the change. She grabbed my hand and shoved something inside it. It looked me straight in the eye and said, "May God save you and stay the hell away from our children." I was shocked. When I opened my hand, once she left, I looked at what she'd given me. It was a chick tract about a coven of witches that would trick children into their house on Halloween and sacrifice them to Satan. Eating them was implied. I was 19, I didn't have a diagnosis or medication, and ended up having an anxiety attack. Thank goodness it wasn't a panic attack, but it was a lot for a young, lonely solo practitioner to handle.
Yep. But that's, like, expected? I don't know. It shouldn't be expected, but okay. When I was in North Carolina, took my kids grocery shopping, was wearing a pentacle. Had some lady I didn't know come up to me telling me how I was going to burn in hell and somebody should call child services on me and have my kids taken away from me because I was a devil worshiper. And I had my kids with me.
My sister-in-law has actually been hassled before by her family because of the fact that they're even associate with us. Because, like, you know, one of my partners is an agnostic, one of them is an armchair magician, and the other one is me, obviously, and I'm a Hellenist. So, like, we are very pagan and very open about it. And, like, 2 out of 3 of one of my partner's brothers will not actually talk to us or let us, you know, associate with their children because they're terrified of us.
I am pagan. I am pansexual. And I am polyamorous. I am everything my family hates. And I have no contact with them.
So, I have another one. So this one is a Noahide practitioner who submitted this. I had a spiritual experience in high school and ended up believing in the Hebrew God. Later, I went to a summer camp the following year, still not knowing what path I was taking and asking for kosher food because I knew that was a religious thing. I told them I was scared of my anti-theist parents knowing and that they shouldn't. They did anyway, and on the car ride home with both my siblings. So they did anyway, being the camp informed the anti-theist parents. With both of my siblings in the car, I was asked, so apparently you asked for kosher food. Are you Jewish now? And only then the following month for them to cook pork for every single dinner meal, them try to accuse me of attempting to ruin Christmas and calling me delusional and having become religious out of stress that my Nana died, threatening to kick me out for starting rumors and refusing to let me own any religious objects such as pendants or a holy book. When I'd moved out from living with them into foster care, I was evicted at Christmas and I had to stay with them again, even though I was decently set at that point on being Noahide, not a Jew, and they made anti-Semitic jokes toward me and said that I'd gone senile like my Christian granddad and my Mormon auntie. Also trying to hold my gender over my head, saying you can't be trans and you can't be religious, but you really can't decide to be both. Or you can be trans or you can be religious, but you can't be both, and condemning me as hating myself for being religious. Quick answer, Sedark. An armchair practitioner is somebody who studies ceremonial magic but doesn't actually do it. It's a snarky joke from Donald Michael Craig's book on the subject. But yeah, like this is where we can start to get into some of the dark stuff, because some of us have had positive experiences. Progressive Liberal has built a very positive, healthy community where his work, you know, may be, you know, influenced by his faith, but like he's not going to have wholesale people abandon him for working with a pagan. Unlike, you know, the channel that I used to work on had a major schism when I was brought on. And Chrissy, do you want to talk a little bit about some of the crap that you faced from your former friends? Because you said that you've lost a good chunk of the people that you used to hang out with. And you don't have to name them. Just mention just some of the stuff you've told me.
So on the nicer side of the spectrum, there's just been people that have just up and out ghosted me ever since coming out. Just treated me like I don't exist anymore. That's on the nice side of the spectrum. On the other side, I have had both people I know and then people who have just times where like these strange soccer accounts have popped up and done stuff and sent stuff to me. That have ranged anywhere from just having snide comments how I am delusional and how I must hate myself for being pansexual and religious, specifically always targeting me for believing in a Semitic religion, because anti-Semitism is always fun.
Well, and even people who have deconverted think that the Canaanites were absolutely horrendous people and that the religion is horrible.
Oh yeah, like the majority of them are still just completely willing to basically take any biblical polemic about the Canaanites as history, just because they don't care about the Canaanites any more than they do about any other religion. So it's just whatever nasty things they can come up with. I have been actively sexually harassed online over it. people.
Yeah, that's a thing that Callan has observed is trans people in particular, trans polytheists. When anti-theists don't like you, they'll start misgendering you as a form of disrespect.
Oh, not even that. Like the misgendering thing happens still, even in public spaces. But
well, this isn't every anti-theist that does this, but it's something that's very, very common. And whenever either of you get into arguments with anti-theists, like the misgendering comes out within a few posts usually.
Yeah, with the but with the sexual harassment, it's more actively like sending me messages explicit about how I should get turned over and fucked for being a polytheist and how I should be put in my place.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. I've had multiple comments from just people creating sock accounts specifically just to do that sort of thing. In fact, but I've been getting that consistently. It's been less so now, but that's just because I've mostly just I have only very, very, very cautiously actually re-entered any of the community. Other than actually Ocean and Cirrus's Discords and then yours, and I'm not in any that are that have very many ties at all to the atheist community directly.
It's so like Chrissy and I'll tell you guys, we've had some contentious debates before. Like we have, and we probably will again because we disagree on some stuff.
Yeah.
But like if you're getting to a place where you're threatening somebody with body or sexual harm because they disagree with you, it's because your argument is shit. You know what I mean? Like I don't know. It blows my mind the way human beings are sometimes. It breaks my heart that has happened to you. It absolutely breaks my heart. I feel so disgusted by that. I'm so sorry.
Yeah, that's on the worst side of it. The more general side is usually just calling me a traitor to my own kind.
Chrissy, DM me. I got a couple flats of jars that are sitting empty that just, yeah.
Which end your jars?
I love my jars.
Well, and that brings us to some of the stuff that you've dealt with on Twitter, because you've dealt with so you were never actually a Christian. Chrissy has gotten you were never actually an atheist from a lot of people.
Oh, I left Christianity at 13.
Mm-hmm.
I pretty much looked around and went, you're not going to tell me what I can and can't do because what's between my legs? Like, I'm out. No, this doesn't work for me. But yeah, I get the whole you were never really a Christian. I'm like, yeah, you're right. I don't see it as an insult because I wasn't.
Well, and it's surprising how many of us were formerly atheists or agnostics as well. A lot of us went through phases where we were that and then had an experience with deity that we say couldn't explain. Chrissy told me about hers. I've talked openly about mine periodically. Again, if you guys want it on the up and up, like my Discord is the place to be. We talk about this stuff all the time. It is an allyship space. Curious atheists can ask questions as long as you guys are respectful. And there's a whole heap of pagans who are more than happy to, have conversations. And we all work on allyship stuff. But like most of us started as atheists or agnostics after having left some sort of Christian faith and then ended up as pagans because of these experiences. Would you guys say that's fairly accurate? Mm-hmm. PL, is that your experience as well?
Yeah, I mean, I was never, heavily Christian at all. So I just kind of discovered things. But most of the people that I meet are, that was their experience.
I was an atheist, a year and a half ago? Like, as far as the whole God concept, I was like, yeah, they might exist, they might not. I don't care. Either help or get out of my way. Now I'm a polytheist. I still have the attitude of helper, get out of my way, but I actually believe they exist now. So,
Well, I have a quote, the question that was way back from Jake 4D about, do any of the polytheist faiths practice today have a pastor or a priest? The answer is, if you have a physical tradition, there's something kind of like that, sort of, but like most of them don't have a singular person who is that, and many polytheist groups actually have multiple people who will do things like lead rituals, but they don't exactly tell people how to believe. It's more like there's somebody who can facilitate you finding more information about your faith, or they're just the people who hosted the ritual or helped lead it. Like the idea of a priest as a leader, or like a pastor as somebody who kind of dictates the word of a god to you, that doesn't really exist within polytheism. It's a very individualistic faith, and it comes with a lot of homework, as we were talking about earlier. But some faiths do, and as Ocean said, you know, he is one for some, but it's not the same kind of position that like you see within Christianity. It's not this absolute authority figure that you get like within Christianity.
Right, that's what I was going to say. It lacks that. I did a response video to the transformed wife the other day. I'll do more, but she said in that video, you know. Christianity is a patriarchy, and it was set up that way because God is a man and men lead, all this. And
I saw that response.
Yeah, you did see that. Yeah. And that's not. I mean, I'm sure that there are. I know that there are people that practice, within different covens and stuff where they've got a hierarchy within the coven, but there's not like, dioceses with deacons and priests and bishops above them and archbishops and then a pope, cardinals and a pope. Yeah, I mean, it's not like that or anything. It's just some people that, Jen, I had cooties for a long time, but it's not like it is with the Abrahamic religions, especially where there's a patriarchal underlying, or matriarchal for that matter, underlying authority in place. Now, you may be part of a organization in which there is some sort of matriarchy or patriarchy or authority line, but it's not. Priests and priestesses or whatever they call themselves don't have the implied authority. So real quick, in law, okay, myself, for those that don't know, I'm in the process of getting my real estate license, right? So there's a few different types of authority. There's express authority and there's implied authority, and there's other ones too, but express and implied are the two biggest ones. Express authority is granted to you. That's you can sit at a piece of paper and say, for instance, according to the state, I have the right to sell life. What am I talking about? Real estate from the state, right? Because I've got a license. And then there's express authority where if I approach you because you might want to sell your house, you see me as an authority figure because I'm attached to a brokerage that sells homes, right? So there's two different types of authority. I'd say paganism, there tends to be a lot of implied authority and very little express authority, whereas with the Abrahamic religions, there tends to be a lot of express authority and less implied authority. I hope that makes a little bit of sense.
Yeah, and like for those of us who are implied authorities, like, I'm slowly becoming kind of that figure a little bit within like Hellenism, or at least within this particular part of the community. Like, we tend not to be seen as like the absolute authority on anything. We tend to be more like guides that can help you find information so that you can find this stuff out yourself, right? Like, I created an entire document for, Ocean's Discord that is now on mine that is literally like the beginner's guide to Hellenism TM, and it's a list of over 30 different books to help you get started within the faith. Because again, paganism of any kind comes with homework, especially Reconstructionist paganism. I have a couple more stories that I wanted to read since we're getting kind of toward the middle of the stream. This person, so this is the next person that sent me DMs. I'm trying to go in order. When I was 14 and first started researching Wicca, I had a small book that I handmade with felt and printer paper. I filled it with things like the Wiccan Rede and the moon phases, and I kept it with me wherever I went. When one day my mom got curious and decided to read what I had inside, which was very odd for a parent who had never invaded my privacy very much before. About 2 days later, my dad set me down for a talk because despite my having a very openly Wiccan babysitter in second grade with no conflict, my parents thought I was being converted into a sex cult or something along that lines. I lied and told them I destroyed the book and threw it out, but I still have it 5 years later. I don't ever plan on telling them I'm a polytheist because I don't think I'll ever have the emotional energy to choose to engage with that same overprotective paranoia a second time. So even if the backlash isn't necessarily like violent or, nasty the way that Chrissy experienced it, there's this constant doubt of our identities. We must be indoctrinated in a cult. We must not know what we're saying. We must not understand what it is we believe. It must be woo, there's this nasty attitude towards us.
Yeah. And I'm going to be honest, in my experience, I have had actually more positive accepting experience from Christian apologists than I have from most atheists.
I've gotten more backlash from Christians.
I've gotten backlash from Christians too, but I've had more positive experiences with Christians than I have atheists so far.
I wonder if that has to do with your tradition and the history and the sources that you study. Because, for me, I kind of joked with my hubby when we were talking about doing a YouTube channel. It's like, all right, let's just go piss everybody off, because I knew Christians and atheists alike were going to have it out for me. So
I was thinking about this. I'm sorry to cut you off. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Okay. I was thinking about this earlier, and you said something that reminded me of it. I think when you're talking about why anti-theists especially can sometimes be so nasty, I think that a lot of times with their arguments, they are used to using logical reasoning to be right. And if you can use a logical argument, you can go from A, B, C to D and prove it, which proof only exists in science, but they like to use that word, and so I'm going to use it for them. They can prove their argument, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then and therefore have proven you to be wrong. They are therefore more intelligent or smarter or more educated, more knowledgeable than you. Or yes, mathematics. Yes, sorry, I meant mathematics. I'm sorry. Or sorry, I said science, but I meant mathematics. My bad. But they have proved that their knowledge is better than yours, or that your intelligence is better than yours, or that their whatever is better than yours. So they get to put themselves a little bit higher. So the moment that you prove that you believe in something that doesn't, that they can logically disprove, which they can't. We've been over this already. They can logically disprove. It makes them immediately smarter than you, and they have to tell everybody how they're smarter than you or more knowledgeable than you or whatever. And I think that's a big part of it is right, because the moment that a lot of them attach their clout to this, right? That's their public clout, is how right they are all the time, how intelligent they are all the time, how knowledgeable they are all the time. And the moment that someone proves that they don't think that their logic is really all that important, there are those air quotes or nasty big pointy teeth. They can be both. The moment somebody says, well, your logic doesn't matter to me because I believe in spite of it, they lose, they can't handle it. They're like, what? But I have A to B to C to D. Look, it's written down. I've got little bullet points and everything. I did two different PowerPoints.
I find it extremely interesting that you find this attitude of I don't know is an unacceptable response in Christianity and in anti-theists.
This comes back to Ocean's excellent work on latent Christianity, right? Just because you deconverted doesn't mean the work is stopped.
Right. And before I forget, because I'm gonna forget my thoughts, couple of things you were talking about before. Y'all don't look at me as an authority on anything. I am just digging through books like everybody else. So, like,
Same.
if I say anything or I do a
Too late.
video,
Too
look at
late.
the sources. Go read it yourself.
Nope.
And
Not
then-
in charge
You
here.
you can look at me as an authority though.
Everything's your fault.
I am the king. Just start the vanguard. I'll be the head of it.
Okay, that's all on you. You can have all that responsibility, and I'm just gonna go make a potion and fill some jars. And then the other thing, I feel like having your books thrown in the trash or burned or shredded is just like a rite of passage for teenage pagans. Like, if you have Christian parents and they find out somehow, they just want to destroy your books.
Yeah, that's a thing that happened to me. My mother denies it now, but I had many things taken and or destroyed. I was encouraged to get into herbalism, like because Native American stuff, but there was this cautiousness that cautiousness that eventually turned into hate for my religion. I actually had, like, I started exploring Wicca in my teen years, as many of us do. And I had a book that I had borrowed from a friend, and that book was taken from me, and I never saw it again. There was another story that I had where I had hand copied parts of it, and it, along with stories and things, I had to feed it into the fireplace. So like there have been a number of experiences that I had. My upbringing was not the best. Like, they were not the best to begin with, but the acceptance of religious beliefs, as much as certain parents want to retroactively rewrite that back into history, didn't happen. Not that way. Not in my memory. Not at all.
My stepdad was stupid and tried to threaten me with burning my books after I turned 18. So I just packed my shit into my car and left.
I've had a very different experience with my parents, and it's just from the, like, I'm not out to my parents really, but my parents are also the kind of people that just don't care that much. They're very Christian. Well, my dad is. My mom is more actually a deist at this point. But they're like the same kind of, they're the kind of Christians that are like, oh, you want to read about X different religion? Here, we'll buy you some books on it. They're more the kind of people that were just like, whatever. That is your life decision.
My parents have passed away, so it's a little bit easier, I think, for me to like be online and doing all of this stuff now, because I don't have to deal with all that bullshit anymore.
So here's another couple stories from the community. One of them, like, let's hop out of the heavy stuff for a half a second into something a little more humorous. So apart from the usual atheist thinking all deities are exactly like the Christian one, I had a story that's more ridiculous than backlash. My elderly neighbor is a Jehovah's Witness. She knows I always wear a pendant for Inanna. I don't give a fuck about hiding it from her. I had to tell her to go away when she was at my door because of her loneliness several times when I probably, quotes, had COVID. Later, I commented to her that it had been a really weird experience being aware that people could die from going near me. She replied, "Is that because of supernatural stuff? I'm such a demon worshiper, lol." So, another person, which is a little more heavy, any backlash I've gotten from coming out pagan was with my father. When he visited my dorm and saw my altar, he said, "What was that?" And I said, "My altar," and then asked what my knife was for. I explained that it was decorative, and when he saw the pentagram, he said, "I don't believe you know what that is for." So I think he was implying that I worship demons, which, for any of you who have not seen my video on whether or not pagans worship demons, go check that out. I go in depth as to where that idea came from, and hint, it's mostly because of mistranslations of the word daimon with the Septuagint.
Plus, demons are fucking awesome, right? Like, that's so fucking cool. I mean,
the demonologies, that's some epic fantasy work, man.
Right, absolutely. There's whole, like, weird ass video games about that shit. So
yeah, have you seen or read King James's book on demons? It's one of the wackiest things ever. It's like it is the guide to every kind of insane idea.
I've heard.
So
I've
that's
heard
actually
of
a
it, but I
funny
haven't
story
actually read
on
it.
fire. This person is the first story that I read, by the way, the very long one from Twitter involving the retail work.
Oh, that's badass.
That's kind of badass.
That's fucking hilarious. I love it.
But these are just some examples of some of the stories that I got. I'm surprised by just how many responses I ended up getting from my Discord. By the way, like it's shocking how many of us have had experience, because I specifically said coming out in atheist or secular spaces, like not necessarily just the backlash you got from Christians. And
Right.
it is crazy how many of the same arguments we get. And I think that a lot of that does have to do kind of like what you and PL were talking about with that latent Christianity idea, that idea of, well, you've changed your answer to the God question, but have you changed your obsessive need to be right?
Right. That's a big one.
Well, and I know that there are some folks in the chat who identify as anti-theist and say that they don't engage in these behaviors. And like having a dialogue is fine, but there's a way to have a dialogue and there's a way not to.
Right. That's what I was going to say. Like, oh, go ahead. You first.
The anti-theist label is a funny one, because a lot of times people go with it, and that's the label that they use for themselves up until they run into a polytheist.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's a conversation that happens, and then it's like, whoa, I'm not anti-theist. I'm just anti-religious bullshit. And it's like, well, okay, that's cool, because we're all anti-religious bullshit. Like, nobody should be using their religion to dictate somebody else's life and what they can and can't do. And you shouldn't be using your religious beliefs to punish people that don't follow your religion. Like, that's shit we can all agree on.
Well, and that's where the anti-harm video from Ocean comes in, I think. Go on,
Yep.
PL, sorry.
It's okay. So I want to tell you guys a story. I haven't told this story publicly yet. So there's lots of different brokerages you can join, right? There's so many different brokerages you can join. So I was looking, at a couple of them to hang my sign with, however you want to say it. And they have this group that, where people ask questions and say, hey, I'm dealing with this client, or I'm doing this, or I'm doing that, whatever. And the guy who ran this brokerage, I shit you not. Okay, first of all, I go meet with the guy, and he wants to meet in person during COVID. Like, demands that I meet in person. I'm like, oh, okay. Like, I wear my mask stuff. He's like, you probably don't need the mask. Like, I'm like, yeah, I'm wearing the mask. I'm just.
The fact that okay.
No. I'm not exaggerating. Every single time somebody says in there, oh, I got a new listing. Oh, I have an open house. Oh, his response every single time was praise Jesus. Every time. Like, I would sit there and have my phone, and I would have 15 notifications, and half of them were just him saying, praise Jesus, Bill, praise Jesus, Jen, whatever their names were. And I finally was like, dude, I'm sorry, I'm out. And he's like, well, you never really gave it a chance. And I'm like, this is obnoxious. That it's fine that you're religious. Like, I don't have any problem with you being religious, but praise Jesus isn't like, what are you talking? Why? Exactly. Yes. And then his last text message to me was, have a blessed day. And I told Batsy, that's Christian for fuck you.
Bless your heart.
But why don't we just, you know what? Bless your heart, darling. You gotta get a southern accent, like over here. So where I'm in Michigan, we actually have like twangs because we think we're the south of the north. So we're at, my church is actively like, oh, bless your heart, when they don't like someone. And it's one of the most obnoxious things in the world.
Well, and when we're talking about like safety in these sorts of spaces, like obviously my whole channel, like this is one of the big things that I stated about my channel from the beginning. My tagline is "We're stronger together," unless it's a pop video, in which case it's faith ain't fear. But again, my pissed off polytheist videos are literally me talking from the perspective of a Hellenist about things that make me angry, within other faiths, usually response videos to different things or crap concepts. The demons video was one of those. But for the most part, my whole thing is allyship. And obviously all of us here are polytheist, atheist allies. We all work within the atheist community to some degree. We all have earned at least some level of a name for doing that. And yet we still get this same crap. And I don't understand to what benefit a lot of these folks seem to think it'll be. What are you going to get from trying to deconvert me if you have no stake in this game, if there's no salvation on the end of it for you, and if I've got no interest in converting you? What do you guys think that is?
I honestly don't know. Because
evangelical atheism.
The argument that they use for it is slippery slope. Because they take the... And I'm sorry, I have no idea what my kids are doing in their room right now, so whatever that slamming is, I apologize. But they take the, well, if you believe in gods, then, and Allie knows me, and I'm about to rant, so hang on a second. Because if you believe
grab a beer, you'll be done with it by the time she's done.
If you believe in gods, then you're going to believe in the essential oil bullshit, the crystal cure all bullshit, and all this other pseudo-fucking science shit.
Okay, guys, press F to pay respects. Witch has officially gotten to the fuck crystals portion of having her on. This comes up no matter what the topic is.
Fuck fucking crystals! Fuck crystals! And on the topic of fucking crystals, yes, they exist. Don't do that! What is wrong with you?
Wait,
anyway.
Literally fucking crystals?
I will DM you.
Turns off DMs.
We still have our mental faculties. We can research and cross-reference and determine what is pseudoscience shit from what has actual backing in the scientific community. It's nothing but slippery slope bullshit that if we try to use, we get called out for it, but when we try to call them out on it, oh no, it's rationalizing. It's rational. They're logicking us. God damn it. And it irritates me.
A couple of people in the chat are saying sex toys made of crystals.
Yes.
Okay. But in order to empower them to cast a spell, you would.
Yes.
We're not going to get too deep into that because Mama Susan's going to be not too happy with us.
Don't get that too deep into you. No.
Make sure you clean them because crystals are porous. But anyway, now that we have taken, we're not going all the way to Memory Land. We're not going that far. Not tonight. Jen's not here to keep us there. PL, if you don't get that joke, you haven't been watching enough of Xenia Bridge.
I muted my mic on purpose. Go on.
But no, legitimately, I've actually had this argument made against me. Anybody who's followed my career on YouTube a little bit knows that, I've got some education in STEM. I never finished my stuff. There's reasons behind that. I've talked about it before. It's not a big, thing. But, I have some background in the sciences. And so, I was told that I was the perfect target for hucksters because of my religious belief, which is the ultimate slippery slope argument. Let's go ahead and talk about that for a hot minute. But I was told that I would automatically be easier to convince of for snake oil salesmen and things of that nature because I have God belief. And I'm sitting here going, half of my job is to debunk these people. I used to help out with that. We've talked about that stuff, on the channel that must not be named before that I used to work on. We've talked at length about it. I've even gone after those people, on live streams that I've been featured on. I mean, Witch joked along with me about crystals and essential oils and stuff like that because both of us find that to be a major problem. Science is a sacred concept within Hellenism. It's a gift from the gods. We consider reason and science to be core essential parts of our faith, right? So, like, how could I possibly be, just because I believe in gods, how could I possibly be automatically an easier target for BS? Like, that these two things, one of these things is not like the other. I don't believe there's a correlate here.
You know,
Right.
I think I've got a solution here. We're going to call this the atheist nightmare. You can't explain crystals.
Oh God.
My Kiwi accent isn't good enough for Ray Comfort impersonations, is it?
The other thing I get a lot too is like when the witchcraft aspect comes out, and that I work with herbs because that's my main focus is food
I'm sorry,
and
PL,
herbs.
you're looking the corner there.
And then I get hit with the, oh, you're the type that's not going to go to the doctor. You're just going to go whip up something in your kitchen. Because this is another issue I have within the witchcraft circles is parents going to the kitchen to whip up something to treat their kids for something they should be going to the gosh dang doctor for.
You know what's crazy though is how much more common that actually is against like hardcore like evangelical Christian mamas than it is in the pagan community even. Like you'd think there'd be a lot more people with that, but I don't know. There are fluffy bunnies, there's a lot of them, but it doesn't seem to be as big of a percentage as it is for like the hardcore evangelical crowd. Like young earth creationists seem to be predominantly anti-vax.
Like if I'll make lavender tea for my kids to help them calm down at night to go to sleep. Right? But if it is a chronic thing, or they are running a fever, or it's just something that isn't in their normal routine, we're going to the doctor.
Coffee is a plant, and everyone's fine. You know what I mean? Like, there's certain plants that have beneficial
I use willow
reactions
bark
in
for
the body, but nobody is like trying to cure cancer with, I don't know, poppy seeds or something, you know?
My aunt literally tried to cure cancer with herbs.
I've got no problem using things like willow bark for myself, but I'm not going to give it to my kids. Dosage, when it comes to plants, 2 leaves off the same plant are not going to give you the same yield of active ingredient. It doesn't work that way.
I use willow bark for my pain, but I use it in a mix, and I use it specifically because, like, the actual concentrated aspirin really upsets my stomach. Like,
dosage for kids, you're not going to find that information anywhere. Nobody puts it out because you can't figure dosage for kids just in your kitchen if you don't have a degree to do that shit, because of their weight and their height, and all of that's going to make a difference. So when we come back, it irritates me. So, like, this brings us to something that is about to go set my live chat on fire. Press F to pay respects for Jen in a half a second. You guys are going to watch this blow up. But one of the big things that a lot of people have had problems with, especially polytheists, is freaking street epistemologists. Oh my fucking... Mm-hmm. So how familiar are you with these people, PL? Because, like, have you ever dealt with one?
I don't think so. I mean, I've heard you talk about them, but I don't think I've ever directly encountered one.
Oh, yeah, here we go. Jen's about to pop off. We had a whole conversation in the Discord about this the other day. So street epistemology calls itself, quote, a tool in the Socratic method toolbox, but like Jen argues that it's a bastardized form of the Socratic method. It basically is this conversation with specific targeted questions that are mostly designed around dealing with monotheists. Like, they don't really know what to do with us when we don't give the answers they expect from their script, but it is meant to make you question the foundations of your beliefs. And if it's done in a healthy way, they're supposed to actually like listen to you and kind of consider like what you're saying, but that's not often what's actually done. They expect a certain set of scripts and they're trying to set up gotcha moments.
It's literally what you will see on channels like Pine Creek. It's just designed to put any theist, usually Christians, into a corner and then try and then force them to acknowledge that their faith is unjustifiable.
Like, I agree with basically everything Jen has said on the topic on various streams. Personally, for me, I go at it from the violation of consent aspect, because the do you want to have a conversation is not, can I attack the foundation of your identity as a person, regardless of, what the hell's going on in your life right now.
Well, and part of the problem is when they encounter us, a lot of the time, what'll happen is you'll get a very targeted question that is meant to trip up a Christian. Like, one that I got was, do you believe that faith and personal experience are viable paths to truth? Which is, I know it's a Matt Dillahunty quote originally. But, the difference between the way that it was used and the way that it was used when Dillahunty said it was he was asking a legit question. It arose naturally from the conversation. This was just sprung on me to try to catch me. And they did not know how to handle when I said, well, faith, no, but personal experience, I don't believe it's possible to exist functionally in the world without.
Well, my thing is, my religion, my praxis, whatever words you want to use to call it, isn't a search for capital T can stick it in a test tube truths. It's for my personal fulfillment. It's for fulfillment in my life. I'm not on some epic adventure hunt for the truth. I'm just trying to live my damn life.
Yeah, I think the Socratic method is important. Jen, illustrated it there pretty well. I mean, it's how you get to know somebody, right? You just ask them questions about who they are. Asking questions to uncover knowledge about someone or something is perfectly reasonable, or even to uncover why an argument is bad. It's totally viable. I think what you're talking about is people who ask questions in order to trip you up, just to what we were talking about earlier, prove that they are smarter, they are more logical, they are more intelligent, and I engage in that. Right? That's a big thing in politics. I know why my version of politics in a perfect world. Right? Yes, definitely, Michelle. I know why my positions in politics would provide a better society for everyone. If the things that I want to have happen. I'm not getting into all that, but excuse me. So if I'm hearing you right, it's people saying, "Oh, you're a thing. Well, I'll ask you these questions to tie you down and then prove that you're terrible." Is that, do I have it?
It's not that you're terrible. It's more proof that your foundations for your belief are too shaky for you to actually believe it. And it's targeted specifically at God belief. And it works very well on Christians. Again, polytheists can actually tie Christians in knots in much the same way. I've done it before. You watched me do it to Christians before, because Christians assert that they have an absolute truth. Polytheists don't. Like, we believe in our gods, but we also believe it's perfectly rational for atheists to not believe in our gods. We think it's perfectly rational for anybody to not believe in our gods. Christians don't. Christian thinks that there's an internal punishment attached if you do. And, if you do believe in anything else, or don't believe in anything at all. And so, there's been anti-theists who have claimed that, I hide behind that, polytheists, you in particular, hide behind the anti-harm argument. But, there's also, which you can talk about the time that the anti-theist was like, oh, you're hiding knowledge from us if you've had these experiences with deity, but you're not sharing them with the entire world.
Right? In the progression of that conversation, I was wrong for having God belief. I couldn't prove that the gods existed, but somehow I was also gatekeeping secret knowledge, because if I could do the thing, I should be able to tell them how to do the thing so they can have the knowledge. It's not my place to do your homework. If you're interested in whatever, go research the shit for yourself and figure out what happens. But I don't care what you believe. I don't care what you figure out. Go live your life. Do your thing.
Yeah. I've had an active rule that since I turned polytheist, that I'm just not going to have any debates on theism. I don't think they're worthwhile, first of all. And I think that they're more than anything just toxic.
Yeah,
And
I was talking. Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were done, Chrissy. I'm sorry.
no. It's where I'm, and part of it is also like I am an exceptionally. I try to be exceptionally private about my faith. I don't talk about it very much, and like Allie can attest, I rarely talk about experiences I have in any specific detail.
I'm one of the few people that you do talk to about that stuff, and it's only because you've shared this stuff with me so intimately before that you trust me. But it's very rare, and it's usually in the middle of the night.
Yeah. I almost never talk to anyone about it. I keep my religion private. I keep my ritual private. I keep everything I do here. And my rule has consistently been, I have no obligation to tell you a singular thing about what I believe or why I believe it or the experiences I have as a result.
I've gotten...
Oh, nope, go ahead.
I've kind of gotten backed off of the debate thing, sort of. Like, if somebody wants to jump into a polytheist thread and go on the attack, somebody grab marshmallows, because I'm gonna jump in and it's gonna be a dumpster fire, and I'm pretty much just entertaining myself for the day. But I something that just occurred to me when you were talking, Chrissy, I don't go into detail on my praxis very much at all. Like, I have a few people that I talk to about it, but as far as like putting it out there on Twitter or something like that, nah. It's nobody's business, really. Like, I want to be visible because other polytheists and other pagans need people to be visible. Right?
Well, and that's something that came up in Ocean's video as well, is when we are visible, our existence helps to inform and affirm the existence of other polytheists. If it weren't for Hellenian and, like, as much as I came to dislike the blog later, Hearth of Hellenism, because, I didn't realize that it was folkish, and we'll get there eventually. I've got that in the works, a video on what folkism is and why the YSCE has problems. But, like, if it weren't for people who did that work, I would never have been able to justify the longing I had and the calling I had to worship the Greek gods in the traditional way. Like, if it weren't for the courageous people who are out as polytheists, I would not have had the courage to be able to seek my path in the first place.
Right. Like, I feel some of that responsibility. But I also don't, like, I'm with Chrissy, like, I don't owe anybody an explanation of my praxis or my beliefs or anything like that. If you want to come respectfully and ask me questions about what I do and how I do it, most often I'm probably going to answer them. But if you're coming at me and I get that vibe that you're just looking for a gotcha or a way to undermine anything I say, no, we're not doing that.
So, like, I guess my question for you guys is this, and I'll let PL go for a minute because he didn't get to talk for a bit. What would you say, like, in terms of interacting with anti-theists in particular? Because, again, like, we all know that Christians have their own problems, most of them, the ones that are not monolatrists and therefore heretics. Like, and again, I say this because there are at least two loving, people that are amazing in my community who are Christian monolatrists. They're like, the other gods are probably real, but I just worship this one. And that's fine. That is a perfectly fine position to have. But like in terms of interacting with anti-theists, what bit of advice could you give to somebody who sees themselves as not anti-us existing, but just anti-harm? Like in terms of either fallacious thinking or how to interact better with us.
Well, I think Jen hit it on the head with that comment she just made. You don't owe anyone an explanation. And no one owes you an explanation. If somebody feels a certain way or worships a certain way or believes a certain way, they don't have to explain that to you, and they're perfectly within their rights to tell you to shove off if they don't feel like explaining anything. Why don't you calm your tits and go have some tea?
So do you think that the anti-theists who begin these sorts of debates, like a lot of the time I had a couple of them that looked like they came in, talking in good faith, and then started leading me down the street epistemology rabbit hole. And when we get stuck at the whole personal experiences of validation solipsism argument, some of them get really vicious. Like
Sure.
the whole, solipsism, it all comes back to solipsism. You're exactly the same as the Christians because it comes back to solipsism. Do you have any comments on that?
I do.
Jen. Sorry, Jen's making me laugh.
Okay, Jen, you're not in the stream. We don't need to go to Mammary Land. We don't have to. This is not a thing that has to happen.
I think that it's okay. I think that it's okay to question things you find. It's difficult for me because I spend a lot of my time pointing out people who are immoral or unethical. That's one of the things on my channel. The biggest video I've ever had was one of the first videos on my channel about Tony.
I love you, Tony.
About fallacious abortion arguments, right? And how abortion is not it should not it's just healthcare for women. That's all it is. It's just healthcare for women, and it doesn't need to be divided into different things. And then it blew up and whatever. So I am a person that goes and attacks bad arguments. That's what my whole channel's about. Is I either have people on that I disagree with, or I debate, or I bring them up and we talk about. I mean, I've debated several people on rape apologetics. I've hey,
you and I had two awesome positive streams though. Like there was those two.
Sure. No. But that's where I'm getting to. I think that you can't be obsessed with the dichotomy. I think both things can and should coexist, because I think that you have to fight against the things that you feel bring darkness into the world, and I think you have to fight for the things that you think bring positivity into the world. I think the problem that a lot of Christians get into is that they're obsessed with the fallacy of sin, and they believe that sin exists and sin doesn't exist. Sin is completely made up and pretend. And so they're obsessed with removing it from the world, but you can't remove something which doesn't exist. And I think that's where that dichotomy happens, because I sit here and say that, and then at the same time, it's like, well, you can't, like, my beliefs are my beliefs. I believe what I believe, and they're going to feel the same way. Well, I believe in sin. So it's one of the holes in the argument that you just have to acknowledge is there, and there's not much you can do about it.
Well, and I think that the difference there also is that they insist that we must believe in sin, and our response is, you can believe in sin if you want to, but it's like, it's like the whole toys thing, right? Like, you can play with your toys, and I'll play with my toys, but the moment you tell me that I must only play with your toys, then we have a problem. Like, there's a lot to it, that part of the argument. And that's where, like, as far as polytheists and atheists go, the majority of the Abrahamics, and I'm going to say the majority here, because Orthodox folks in the various Abrahamics faith, there are a few that are, more heretical that actually do accept us, but the majority don't. And the majority of them seem to want to legislate their morality on the world because their religion tells them it's a moral imperative, whereas most of us, it's significantly less important for that to happen, if at all. A lot of us have our political beliefs informed by our religious beliefs, but like, I'm not only going to vote for somebody because they're a Hellenist, whereas like Christianity is a requirement for a lot of Christian voters. There's a reason that there's basically no elected representation that isn't Christian, or at least isn't openly non-Christian.
Yeah, I don't care what someone's faith is. I care what your platform is. What are you running on? What are you going to try to accomplish in office? Like, I don't care what religion you are. That doesn't tell me jack about you. Unless you're a Christian, then you're probably going to hate me. So, yeah, I'm not a fan. But
yeah. Well, the Attorney General... real quick, on that point, the Attorney General is a member of Opus Dei, and I have a video about this on my channel. Opus Dei is this fanatical Catholic sect that's insane. Anyway,
that's the cat of nine tails.
Yeah, they're crazy
shit.
Anyway,
wow.
He said about 2 months ago, maybe 3 months ago now, basically the reason that the founding fathers gave everyone freedom with the Constitution was because they believed that everyone would be guided by Christian morality. And the fact that there are so many people like us that aren't guided by Christian morality, in his words, of course, is the reason why he believes that a lot of these freedoms need to go away, because if you can't be guided by Christian morality, then you can't be trusted with freedom. Which, of course, is a complete bastardization of everything. Freedom is inherent and it's inalienable, has nothing to do with Christianity or anything. He's just a terrible, terrible human being. But a lot of Christians feel that way, right? They feel if someone doesn't believe the same way that I do, then they obviously don't have a moral center, and they, secretly eat people or put them in Wayfair cabinets and sell them for $13,000. A lot of Christians think that this is
nice. Slip in there,
right? That's what they believe, and yes, Gia, what? I can't even talk. Jessica, a lot of them were deists, especially Benjamin Franklin and Thomas Jefferson. Jefferson, in lots of his letters, was like he would refer to God. Sometimes would refer to the universe. He was not a Christian, really. But
he was also known to be very sympathetic to early mythicists. Yeah.
So, Chrissy, you have a question from the chat.
Short answer is no. Sin is not in anything I have read ever to be found really in Canaanite theology. I don't know where it would come from.
Honestly, as far as anybody can tell, it was an idea of ritual pollution that was like, because there's ritual pollution that's common to most, faiths that stem off of Proto-Indo-European languages. But like, it looks like it was a part of ritual pollution in which where miasma, as you would put it in Greek, got conflated with agos, and the two became the same. Miasma in this case is ritual pollution that just happens by being human, like defecation, birth, death, all the things that make us human separate us from the gods, and so you have to purify yourself in order to approach them. That's the entire idea. Agos, on the other hand, is actions that break divine law, and most of these are very specific and limited in scope, which is part of the reason you don't hear Hellenists talking about them very much. Breaking Xenia is one of them, like, for example, the Kuklopes, or the Kuklops. Polyphemus, he ate, men from the ship that landed at his door. And so the gods basically forsook him and he got punished for that. There are stories of that. Like later on, Poseidon gets mad because like that was his son. But for the most part, Zeus, would have stepped in if that violation had not occurred. You get violations of hospitality all throughout the Iliad, the Odyssey, the Hesiodic epics. This idea of violating Xenia equals incurring the divine wrath of Zeus. And what that looks like is that miasma, ritual pollution, and agos, which again is deliberately breaking, those things got conflated into some version of original sin, which again was more Christianity, but those things got conflated together in Judaism. And that's where you get like sin is basically agos, but it's like everything you could possibly do as a human being versus, a very strict set of limited things that the gods might get mad at you about.
There's
real quick, just as a note, so people don't get confused, though. So for ritual purity in Judaism is different in that things that make you ritually impure are not actually because you're human, but because those are things which are divine. So, for example, giving birth, the reason why women become unclean after they give birth is because that is an act of creation and is one of the most divine acts there is. Same as when you come in contact with someone who has died, the reason that you are ritually unclean when you come in contact with someone who has died is because they have now passed on into the divine realm. So you are in direct contact with the divine. When they were discussing actually what books would be in the Hebrew Bible canon, one of the criteria was it would be that which dirties the hands, that which makes you unclean.
So like that's kind of my theory on that, is it was like a similar idea of ritual purity that became just inaction primarily.
There's a question in chat that I wanted to respond to real quick, and it's what are your thoughts on more polytheists opening city council meetings with prayer? And I think that was for all of us, not just for me. My thoughts on religion and politics are pretty simple. It's equal representation or none at all. No more of this half-ass shit. So the opening city council meetings with prayer, everybody gets to participate regardless of what faith or religion that they are part of, or no more fucking prayers opening city council meetings. One or the other. No more.
Or schools.
School. Oh, we homeschool for a reason.
Yeah, right?
My response is no prayers in city council meetings or anything. Like I'm happy to pray to my gods in my home, but I don't think anybody needs to be publicly watching me do so in the square.
Yeah, this is one of those things that I go back and forth on. So whatever I say today, I'll probably feel differently in 6 months. Somebody will be like, 6 months ago, you said that. And I'll be like, yeah, I changed my mind again. I don't know what to tell you. But I'm currently in the equal representation thing with which, like, yeah, if people are going to, if you can pray to Yahweh, I can pray to Venus. How about that? I'll bring in some rainwater. We'll have a little prayer. How about that?
I mean, considering the climate right now, I'll show up and do a prayer for the Morgan, and we'll see how that turns out.
There you go. And then I start thinking about, well, here's the issue. Here's why it's complicated historically. Historically, the separation of church and state was to keep the state out of church. It wasn't to keep the church out of the state. Church and state comes from the fact that a lot of the people that came over here had been screwed with by the state and weren't allowed to worship the way that they worshiped, right? So when they got here, they wanted to be able to worship, and they said people should stay the hell out of our religion. And it got changed in the 50s. Somebody said in the chat, in the 50s, that's when we had McCarthyism and in God we trust and blah, blah, blah. So you can't, if you try to have a historical argument, you can't have a historical argument because the history is completely opposite of what we've got today. It's diametrically opposed. So all these Christians are saying we need to add Christianity back into politics. No, we didn't have, we literally are here. Like I am descended from a line of people that came over on the Mayflower. Okay. So they were people that came over here seeking their religious freedom from the state. So, when you bring that up to them, they get mad. And I've never brought that up to a theist and had any kind of rational argument. It just turns into, no, you know what you're talking about, and Jesus and God, and how can you deny God? It becomes one of those.
So this is an interesting question from On Fire. I live in an apartment building. Any thoughts on doing ritual in a public park? Is it the type of ritual? So I think that doing a ritual in a public park is a very different thing than doing a ritual beginning a government ceremony. One of them is an official function of the state that thereby whatever's done there receives partial state endorsement. The other is doing a religious act in a public space, which I would argue Christians do all the time. Have you ever had one come up to you and be like, come pray with me? You know, or the bell ringers at the beginning of the, you know, at the openings to like grocery stores and stuff around Christmas time, begging you for their money for religious functions, like, you know, donations within churches going on field trips, like, you know, church camps. Like there's like Christians get to express their faith publicly. We absolutely should be allowed to too. I think there's a distinct difference between what we're talking about with government and school functions, where there's a sort of state enforcement of religious belief, or at least a perceived one, versus, you know, like you yourself expressing your beliefs personally in a public space. I'll see what you guys think. That's just my view on it.
I look at it like this. If I go sit out on my front porch to smoke a pipe or whatever, oh yeah, yelling kids, and I have to hold on one second. Go ahead, Perlib. I'll be back.
Yeah, I hang out with Sock all the time, so I'm used to this. But that's a GDC joke. Not everybody's going to get that. That's complicated. You know, I think that. Do I think that you should do it? Absolutely, you should go do it. That's what I think that you should do. You know, I think that there's a lot of people that want to have right now a re-emergence of the satanic panic from the 90s, when everyone who was a Satan worshiper was having anal sex with horses to celebrate Satan.
In Minecraft.
In Minecraft, whatever. I'm just saying, like, that's right. That was the satanic panic shit. So you're going to get that. You're probably going to get somebody that's like, oh my God, you probably are a cannibal or whatever. I would say, if that's your faith and that's what you believe that you're called to do, I would go do it. Don't piss off the gods. That's my advice.
What I was gonna say is, if I go sit out on my front porch and I have to deal with listening to the church bells when we're like 2 blocks away from the frickin' church, then I can do whatever I damn well please in the park. Now, that being said, if you're going to do it in a park, you're gonna have to be ready for the attacks, because they're gonna happen. Because for whatever reason, Christians feel like they can just accost whoever that is doing something they don't agree with whenever the hell they feel like it. So it's a balancing act.
Chrissy, do you want to add anything?
Can't even remember what I was going to say. So
the question was about like what our opinions were about doing a pagan ritual in a public park versus something like, you know, the prayer stuff we were talking about with government.
Oh, I'd say do it. I'd say be on the lookout, because I can guarantee that there's going to be a Christian with a chick track waiting. They're kind of like ants, you know, they're everywhere. And they're just waiting to pass these things out nonstop. And be prepared to be accosted and explain, and be prepared for this Christian to be basically trying to street evangelize. I get street evangelized for doing nothing except dressing in a corset.
So Jake 4D, for those of you guys who don't know, is actually another person who I met before I ended up striking out on my own. Very curious person who tends to investigate polytheistic belief, is starting to learn a little bit more about us. But yeah, like, see, we have some atheist support for this idea as well. Like, we've got, you know, Jen in the chat. We've had a couple of other people. So
Jake,
I think
I want to say Jake was my very first patron. I love you, Jake.
Jake's good people.
I can say when it comes to my own faith, there's a reason I don't go anywhere public to do anything. Like if I were in a much better society, I might, but it gets very old to tell someone that you're a Canaanite polytheist, and then them going on about, oh well, do you believe that we should sacrifice children to Moloch? It gets old. A lot.
Yeah, that's
So-
Baphomet, not Moloch.
Well,
Yes, people.
and we don't sacrifice the babies. We eat them. It's like,
In Minecraft.
yeah.
Oh, I need to go buy more jars. Totally not related.
Oh my God, Twitch, you and your jars. Don't ever ask Twitch what's in them.
Yeah, you don't want to know.
We're getting pretty close to when I had talked about wrapping up. So, do you guys have any final sort of words on what we can do to make the community both more welcoming and accepting for polytheists, but also what we can do to engage better with anti-theists? Because some of us, like I've seen examples where there are certain rhetorical styles that some more open to conversation atheists use that look very similar to the attack styles with anti-theists. But then you sometimes find out that the person's actually acting in good faith. This happened to me a couple of weeks ago on Twitter when I was engaging with somebody who made a very bad joke, and we turned out to decide at the end that we had more in common than not, and ended up like having a decent conversation by the end. So what can we do on both sides of our community to come together a little more, which is kind of how we usually end Xenia Bridge, but I'm really curious what your guys' takes are, considering all of you, to some degree, came from the atheist side of the community, or at least lived there for a while you were in the closet.
Oh,
The same advice I would give to anyone on anything: listen more and shut up more.
yeah. Like, I think the biggest thing for atheists is you're already aware that with Christianity, you've got more denominations than you can count. But for some reason, you assume polytheism is one cohesive thing.
And we're not even denominations. We're completely different religions. Every person in this panel is a different religion.
Yeah. So, like
we're not even, we have less in common apart from certain attitudes towards things in terms of our actual beliefs in the gods we worship than any pair of Christians would. Like, at least they believe in the same damn book. We don't even necessarily worship the same gods, or even the same eras. Like, Chrissy worships a much older pantheon than I do, which is trying to reconstruct a modern syncretic faith, and PL is just beginning to kind of dip his toes into Religio Romana, which is significantly later than Chrissy or I.
We're not even pulling from the same parts of the world. We're pulling from completely different parts of the world in what we're trying to reconstruct. So it's just I lost my thought. What was I saying?
To tell you how old my religion is, my religion taught alleys how to write.
My religion taught PLs how to think.
Like,
what?
just
I said my religion taught PLs how to think.
I remember my thought. If you take into account when one of us sits down to do this YouTube thing, we're going to do a YouTube channel. And then the fact that we write a script, and that script contains usually no less than 10 caveats about how this applies to our reconstruction of what we are practicing, not to all polytheists. But then you want to argue with us like polytheism is a cohesive whole thing. Like, no, we're not.
Yes, Ocean, bar. And like PL, I'm sorry, I could not help myself. I like to poke fun at the Religio Romana. I do it as Comrade. I do it to them all the time. But yeah, Ocean. Oh, this is an inside joke forever. You guys will catch it between Ocean and I. Bar. It's a Greek thing. But so do you guys have any final parting words? It looks like Chrissy said that she needs to get going for a moment, so we're gonna be wrapping up. Do you guys have any final words for anybody in the chat that you'd like to say, or do you have any words about like coming out and encouragement for people who haven't yet, or any sort of like any advice you want to give?
I would just say if you want to come out and you want to be visible for other people that feel like they can't, then that's fine. But you can also make your broom closet as comfy as you need it to be. Like, you don't have to come out. It's not something that you have to do. If you feel comfortable doing it, go for it. If you don't feel comfortable doing it, that's fine too. You can do what works for you and what's going to keep you safe. Like, that's my most important thing, is just do what's going to keep you safe.
Yeah, like I'll speak from my experience. Do what you think is best for you, because there's no telling how it's going to go over. In my case, coming out in the atheist community was a pretty negative experience. Wasn't fun. It was a major contributor as to why I left the community for 2 months. Like, flat out. Ended all contact except for with Allie and like 2 other people. You need to do what you think is best for you, and above all, make sure you are surrounding yourself with a support network.
Mm-hmm.
Try to find people that are going to be open. There are a lot of people here in the polytheist community that will definitely take you up and have your ear and have your back for whatever you need. Like, if you need, so just try and just be as safe as possible. And if you feel safe coming out, then do it.
And know that we have your back.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, they've said these 2 people. Wait, that one, that one. Can I get it? That one and that one said everything I would have said. So, I mean,
yeah, and remember that you guys always are welcome within my spaces, within Ocean spaces. Like, as long as you're not a folkist, because folkism can take a long walk off short pier. But like,
yeah, if you're a focused, then I think I get automatic permission to be mean.
Yeah, I can grant that.
I heard sacrifice. We're sacrificing.
Wait, put the jars away. Put the jars away.
Fine.
I'm never gonna get to use my sacrifice knife.
But as far as, closing remarks go, quick kind of, I guess, shill really quick from all of you guys. Chrissy, I know that you're not currently, doing a lot of stuff on the community. Do you have any appearances or anything that you'd like? I put your Twitter in the description for folks to check out.
In the future sometime, I'm going to be on with Shay and Callan.
That's exciting. On Transgarter?
Yep. And other than that, though, like in the future, you and I are planning on working on stuff on Dollar Store Crowley.
Doing Dollar Store Crowley. So yeah, we are going to be taking down a notorious. I don't know if he's supposed to be a Satanist or if he's supposed to be like a Canaanite or what the hell. He profits off of people and charges them upwards of $500 for, so-called bonds with the Canaanite gods, but he uses them in the sense of them being demons. It's really terrible. We're working on that collab going on in the future, but that'll be a few weeks out. On my channel on Monday, we're actually going to be having Transgarter on ourselves, Jen and I, to talk about polytheist and atheist allyship, because you've got the power couple with Ocean and Surus, and Shay and Callan don't get near enough recognition for the work that they do for trans rights. So we're hoping to have them on and have a great interview on their allyship there. And then Thursday, I'm also going to be doing a response, not a live stream, but an actual response video to J.K. Rowling's 150-person letter, and just how brilliant it is as far as propaganda goes, on a craft writing level. I'm going to go over all the ways in which it's meant to be manipulative, and all of the ways that the actual framing and phrasing within that document is manipulative, and how it nulls the brain of folks who are kind of fence sitting and brings them over to a position they wouldn't agree with if it was said more succinctly. And I'm also going to be going over to Jen's channel on Friday night for an interview about the work that we do on Xenia Bridge. So that's exciting.
If anyone wants to get in contact with me, the main way to do that is Twitter. My Twitter handle is Chrissy H. Well, it's Black Lives Matter, 3 exclamation marks. Chrissy H at Unashamed.
There's a link to your actual Twitter in the description if people want to get.
Unashamed.
Yeah, you've got a pretty big stream.
Tommy.
I was saying, PL, you've got a pretty big stream coming up tomorrow.
Yeah, tomorrow night is the first episode of Discuss, which I'm doing with Kyle Curtis, the former host of Non Sequitur Show. We'll be doing shows every Sunday night for the next few months with different guests. Tomorrow night we're going to talk about cancel culture, which should be a lot of fun. Tuesday night, I'm doing the 3rd episode of Requiem for the GDC. That will be Christopher Mowdy. It's been an examination of the great debate community. Episode 1 was Sock Account. Episode 2 is Holy Spackle. And Tuesday night is it's Chris Mowdy. And then Thursday night, I've got some amazing, amazing members of my Discord who are experts in biology and infectious diseases and that sort of thing. So I've got a panel of them coming on, and we're going to take live questions or questions from the live chat for everybody. For 2 hours, I'm going to have these people that you can just absolutely ask anything you need to know about COVID, coronavirus, whatever you need to know. You're going to have real experts that can answer the questions. I'm just hosting it. That's not me at all. But they've very graciously agreed to dedicate their time for anyone to come in and just ask questions and hear from people that can answer it succinctly and intelligently. So,
Christy Abbey, which is what the craft? Creepy Eevees is Raz. Creepy Eevees is the person who is sick. So, Witch, do you have anything interesting coming up? I know that you've been working on getting your channel going.
Yeah, I kind of banged out a script today, so gotta go through and fix, tweak it and all that, and then figure out how to do a video. But yeah, at some point there will be a video up on my channel, and I have no clue when or what kind of schedule for uploading things I will have. I am on the Twatters, but you probably don't want to follow me, because
Which likes to get in a fight with anti-theists and Christians.
I'm not picky. Anti-theists, Christians, bigots, whatever. If you're being dumb, I'm going to probably argue with you because you're being dumb.
Well, as we've wrapped up tonight, guys, I've noticed there's still 59 of you hanging out, 60 of you. We've only got 40 likes. If you could pop down there and give me a like for your time, maybe post a comment if you guys enjoyed what you heard, or if you want to add, if you guys want to add your own experiences, either coming out experiences, positive or negative, because I've shared a few more positive ones tonight as well. PL had a welcome from his community, or indifference. It was somewhere between oh, that's awesome, and an indifferent shrugs, which is significantly better than you're not valid. If you guys want to leave us some comments about that stuff, or, talk about anything you guys find interesting, that would be amazing. Share this if you get a chance. If you're not subscribed yet, subscribe and hit the notification bell. I've got some really cool stuff coming down the pipeline. Ocean and I have been working together on a bunch of paired videos, and we tend to release them on the same days. So if you guys are a fan of his, you'll probably enjoy the stuff I'm doing. And remember, we're stronger together.